I saw a clip from Irish TV recently, actually, and this is linking, I think, to the heavy immigration that you have going on at the moment. Obviously, we do in Britain. And there was I don't know who the presenter was, but there was an Irish presenter, and he was with someone of West African heritage who had an Irish inflected accent. And the interview was about the West African saying, Ireland's changed, it's different now. There's people from here, there, everywhere. And then he kind of celebrated that the white people are going extinct. And there was no challenge to that. And I think what we're starting to see in the culture is that even people who wanted to hold on to those the respectable views that allowed the taboos to remain with regards to not wanting to make people feel excluded from what it means to be Irish or British, is now I think people are starting to see that peoples equals culture at scale, and you can't necessarily have an Ireland if you're going to celebrate the diminishing of the Irish people, the indigenous Irish people. What what would you say is the current understanding of all of this within the Irish electorate? Do you find that you have people reaching out for solutions to this? Is this a conversation that is being had, or is it not?
It's a conversation that is being had by force of circumstance, because up to quite recently, it was a conversation that was taboo. But now, thanks to a pretty awful riot that took place last year around this time, were terrible devastation by thugs, actually. But it was spurred on by an attack on school children by an immigrant. A very complex situation. It wasn't a normal, just gratuitous attack. But nonetheless, it kickstarted this riot. And all of a sudden, as usual, in Western countries, something happens, and then there's this rearguard action, which produces, well, now in order to retain power, we've got to address this problem. And suddenly, because they have abandoned those who feel alienated in their own land for so long, to switch around and to say, well, now we're on your side and we're going to do something about this situation, seems kind of, well, pathetic to most people, really. But nonetheless, they were glad to hear it. Now, funny enough, the strong talk about immigration was good, and it produced a positive result in the polls in advance of a general election which we just had. However, the item itself drifted down to something like 7% of those polled in advance of the election said this was the primary concern. It was, during the summer, the hot issue. But when other issues such as the economy drift in, and cost of living, and Donald Trump, and all of these other things, with our shortest attention span, this drifted down in people's interests and concerns. However, it is a subject that will not go away. And for as long as... what it did do, however, was it opened up the space whereby the conversation could be had. It was no longer a taboo conversation. And it is a very important conversation. It's an important conversation because it really does determine who we want to be, what we are, and where we go from here. So, yes, that's where it stands now. All European countries are experiencing similar turbulence. And thanks to, populations standing up and saying enough is enough, we are going to have a say. Not in a racist way, but in a way that, we have to, Derrida himself used to say this, champion of those who might oppose those who espouse oikophilia, not oikophobia. Oikophilia is love of home. He used to say, how can you be a host if you do not have a home. If we do not preserve the home, if we do not preserve what we are and who we are, how can we welcome people into that? Because giving away our home, as certain of his French contemporaries, and abandoning it to the open border policy, these universalist claims, means you don't have a home to give. It becomes a free-for-all. It becomes a non-entity, not something with which you cannot identify, and it becomes destitute and derelict. So to avoid that, we must speak.